Then I got a call from one of my contractors around about 7 o'clock in the morning saying, "Hey, Paul, is that your house on Bridge Street on fire?" And I'm like, I sincerely hope not. But then I look and I see these pictures of flames coming like 15, 20 feet out of the roof. And I was like, oh, yep, that's my house.
Welcome to the Rental Property Owner and Real Estate Investor Podcast, brought to you by the Rental Property Owner Association, providing benefits and services to real estate investors and rental property owners for over 48 years. With your host, Brian Hamrick from Hamrick Investment Group.
This episode is sponsored by Green Property Management, managing everything from single-family homes to apartment complexes in the West Michigan area. Find out more at greenpropertymgt.com. And Point Central, the leading provider of enterprise-scale smart home automation for short and long-term rental property managers. Learn more at pointcentral.com. Hello and welcome to episode 103. My guests today are Paul Leason and Jacques Cyr. Both are investors turned real estate agents who come from a corporate background. And today they're going to share the stories of how they transitioned into real estate investing, some of the challenges, stories, and experiences they've encountered along the way. And we're also going to talk about how they're helping other investors in today's challenging market. Paul, Jacques, thanks for being on the show.
Good morning.
Thanks for having us.
Paul, why don't we start with you? Give us a little bit of your background.
Okay, originally from England, automotive professional, engineer and program manager. I was working in Europe, and in 2004 was given the opportunity to come to the States. Became an accidental landlord at that point in time, renting out my property in England and then moving across to the United States. From there on, been working as automotive professional through to 2016 when I actually was able to give up my day job and move full-time into real estate. I first started buying properties in 2009, right in the dip of the Depression, and just continued from there. Bought 5 houses in the first year and continued to a point where I was able to give up my day job.
Where were you buying these properties?
All kind of central Grand Rapids, 49507 zip code was my first one, and I got comfortable with that area and started buying others around that zip.
And what kind of investing were you doing?
Buy and hold, single family. I thought I was looking at a get out strategy that if this didn't work, how I would sell the property. So initially I thought about buying single family homes because I could then sell to homeowners or I could sell to investors versus a duplex would just be to investors. As I got more comfortable, then I started looking at duplexes as well.
Duplexes, single family. How many do you have now?
I've got 18 properties, 25 units.
Wow, and that has allowed you to kind of transition out of your full-time corporate job?
Correct. I was very nervous about doing it at first. Big responsibility, supporting the family, moving out of my full-time job and doing real estate first full-time. However, after I made the decision and quit my corporate job, my only regret was that I didn't do it earlier.
Good. Jacques, what about you? Tell us a little bit about your background.
Originally got started with my brothers probably 15 to 20 years ago, where we would build new builds and kind of house hack and then sell those properties probably 2 or 3 a year. Kind of transitioned out of that for a while into corporate America, worked in corporate America in Boston and Chicago for many years. And then while living in Chicago, was able to acquire at that time a franchise for essentially marketing and lead generation, and explored the Chicago market, acquired and rehabbed a few properties for flips. At a certain point, my wife and I decided it would make sense to move back to Michigan. That's where our families are both from. And so we moved back to the Grand Rapids area. Just love the demographics and the central location of Grand Rapids. And also I was able to transition my franchise back to this market, which is the southwest 14 counties of Michigan. Looking to, through the years, I've been able to invest in about 7 properties on my own, looking to acquire another 7 here in the near future. So I just ended up, wanting to concentrate my efforts here in Grand Rapids. And that's where I began networking with individuals like Paul and others in the area to, again, concentrate just on the Grand Rapids area.
And the type of investing you're doing, the 7 properties that you have, are they single family or what do you have?
Single family. Same type of exit strategy as Paul, that at some point if I want or need to sell or the market conditions are right, the goal is then to sell those properties. And that's where actually through recent training, I went and became a Berkshire Hathaway agent. So I've been doing that for a while and working out well.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. You both were investors, or are investors. You both have a corporate background. You're both now Berkshire Hathaway real estate agents. How did that come to be?
My goal was always to leave my automotive profession and go real estate full time. So the goal was to get the license to help support a separate income. I already had the income from the rental properties, but the goal was to have another income to replace my automotive income. So I originally hired in with Steve Olker's group, and that got acquired by Berkshire Hathaway, I think, in 2015. And now happily with Berkshire Hathaway and have been so ever since.
Okay. What about you, Jacques?
Actually, Paul was the influence for me to join Berkshire Hathaway. He and I had some conversations about me wanting to get my real estate license to become an agent in the area, and through his influence, and then after meeting with some of the individuals there, I was really quite impressed with their social media capabilities and marketing capabilities, and just the professionalism of the office. So was quick to sign on with Berkshire Hathaway, and it's been a good ride so far.
So are you working with homeowners and investors, or what's your specialty there as real estate agents?
Yeah, I'm working with both. Naturally, I thought my investor background would be very helpful for other investors. However, I've been working with some ex-work colleagues and friends locally to find residential real estate, their primary residence. So my business has been split pretty much 50-50 between investors and homeowners. And some of those investors now are out of state, ranging from California to Arizona to Colorado.
How are you able to help other investors find properties that make sense?
Yeah, I always look for whatever makes sense and try to help the investors by ensuring the investment is good for long term. So what I go in and look at is the cash flow may be great now, but there may be a lot of capex that needs to go into the property. If the roof is in bad condition, the siding is flaking, the windows, the furnace, the water heater, water pipes. I have a mechanical background. I'm very hands-on. So I go through the houses kind of with a fine-tooth comb, almost like a pre-inspection, and give them feedback on the good, the bad, and the ugly of the property, and whether I personally would buy it as an investment or not.
Give me an example of the good, the bad, and the ugly that you've looked at.
You see a lot in the basements. You could see I look for termite damage, cracked foundations. Recently looked at a multi-unit, and there was water seepage coming up through the floor. And actually in the street outside, you could see water coming up through the street. So obviously a very high water table. It was one of those issues where it was permanent. There was very little that could be done to change that. There was already a drain tile sump pump system in there, but the water was running constantly. And the sump was running pretty much constantly. It would cycle on, cycle off, cycle on, cycle off. So it was one of those problems that was never going to go away. So that would be a poor investment for myself or for anyone else.
So your buyers or whoever it was you were working with, you were able to talk them out of that property? Yeah,
I didn't take much to talk them out, but I try to present good properties to them and look through and save them the time and the money of an inspection process. So I will go through and filter out the properties. So for every 10 or 20 properties I could look at, there may only be one or two that I would recommend that they bid on. And so that saves them time. It saves them an inspection fee of $500 to $1,000, depending on the inspection that they do, and sets them off on a good foot.
And Jacques, what kind of numbers can investors expect in this kind of Grand Rapids, West Michigan market?
Yeah, I think if we look in Grand Rapids, the numbers are definitely going up. It's becoming a tighter market. Inventory's down, and though it's come back up. The average home sale price in Grand Rapids was just 212 or 213,
Correct.
212 or 213,000. But they can get in from anywhere from 40 up to 120, 130. Some of the duplexes are in that range as well. I have some clients that just acquired over in Wyoming, Michigan, a property or under contract for 65. And then they'll put in another 10 or so, force the appreciation, and do the BRRRR strategy of buying, renting, or rehabbing, renting, refinancing, and repeating the process. So,
What did you say? The BRRRR strategy?
the BRRRR strategy.
The BRRRR? I've never heard this. The
You
BRRRR
haven't.
strategy?
You buy, you rehab it, you rent it, you refinance it, and then you repeat the process. So essentially, you start to play with the house's money after you've forced that appreciation. Then you play with the house's money, the bank's money, and you keep repeating the process. So you can do that a couple times a year, and you can finance under residential properties up to 10 now, versus it used to be 5, and then it became 7, I believe, and now you can do up to 10 before you have to start to go to commercial loans.
Are there ways to force appreciation on residential property?
Certainly, doing the work on the property is the one way. With the rental market at the moment, if you can increase the rents, so if you have a 4 or 5 bedroom property, and then rent almost on a per room basis, maybe $400 per room on a 4-bed, $1,600, you could potentially force the appreciation there by selling to an investor who's looking at getting 1% rule. So $1,600 a month in rental income would equate to $160,000 as a 1% rule. So that's possibly one way.
I'd like to take a moment to tell you about Green Property Management. Not only do they manage everything from single-family homes to apartment complexes in the West Michigan area, they also manage my entire portfolio. So I can tell you from personal experience that their unique flat fee management style is worth a closer look. If you feel that your property isn't operating to its fullest potential, then Green Property Management can help you take a holistic approach that will save you money, eliminate your headaches, and increase your net income. And if you're a property manager interested in applying Green Property Management's model, give them a call at 1-866-95-GREEN or visit them on the web at greenpropertymgt.com. Now, does that work in reality? Because let's say you're trying to sell to an investor, you bought the property for whatever, $90,000, you put $20,000 into it, you get the rents up to $1,600 a month. Will someone actually be able to pay $160 for that, or will they then find out when they get an appraisal that, oh no, it's only worth $130?
Yeah, I was going to say, if they're going to finance it, it's probably not going to work because the bank will look at the sales comparison for the area, and they won't look at a rental comparison for a single family home.
Yeah. So, but if they're going to pay cash,
If they're going to pay cash, then it could be a strategy.
yeah. Now, are you working with buyers or seeing buyers coming in and paying cash at that type of amount, $150 or higher?
Yes. Yep. There's a lot of investors who are still going the financing route, but multiple investors still using cash, and you see it commonly. Investors and also homeowners who are paying for cash for properties.
Yeah, I think cash is still king. It helps with you could make a stronger offer if you have cash, right? And a quicker close. A lot of the properties that we acquire and keep our eyes out for are fixer-uppers or handyman specials, that type of thing, where we can perhaps in some situations maybe add a bedroom, which would help with that rent roll. So, you get a higher rent each month. And so now whether or not the cap rate can be achieved, then that's where myself and Paul will help the investor run their initial numbers, but at the end of the day, they still have to, it's their investment and they have to run their numbers, and we want to ensure, but we'll do what we can to coach them on that, to kind of know some of the nuances of the neighborhoods and the municipalities and their requirements and what programs are available to help them. So
that helps, just knowing the municipality and their occupancy requirements. Some investors come into an area and don't even realize, well, the city's going to come and inspect your property if you're going to rent it out. Well, that they could hand you a list of things that need to be taken care of that could run into the thousands of dollars. So, and some investors just don't even realize that when they buy.
Peeling paint on, is one that a lot of investors wouldn't think, but you have to have peeling paint on soffits and fascia repaired, and
Yeah, I've had various different inspectors through my houses, and it seems that they're not all the same. And
yes.
my properties are pretty nicely kept. So I think the nicer they are, the more they look for something to pick on. And so one of the examples was that the deadbolt didn't throw a full inch; it only went 3/4 of an inch. So I had to change the lock set out because the deadbolt didn't throw a full 1 inch.
And the city inspector caught you on that.
Picked me on that one, yeah. Wow. But I had vinyl windows. The house was very nicely finished, but that was the one issue that he picked on.
There are programs out there, though, that help people pay for some of these expenses. And I think you had mentioned some of these before we started rolling.
Correct. One of the projects that I did was a duplex, and I actually found it on Craigslist, and it was advertised, I think, at $40,000. And this was going back in probably 2010. And I looked through the one unit, and I was like, I can't pay $40,000 for it. So I didn't look in the other unit, and I responded to the seller and said that I probably wouldn't be able to pay anything over $10,000 for it. A few weeks later, he contacted me back and said, pay me $10,000, the unit is yours. You can buy the duplex.
So he was selling a duplex for $40,000. You were able to negotiate it down to $10,000?
Yeah, I guess my negotiation was that I said I wouldn't buy it. I wouldn't pay anything more than $10,000 because of the work that was needed. And I'd kind of forecast around about $65,000, but I'd only looked on the one side. I was just assuming the other side would be the same. So when he called me back, I looked in the other unit, and it was in a similar condition, but it needed pretty much everything done to it. So I bought it for $10,000. I tried to negotiate $8,000, in fact, but he said $10,000 was his base because he was selling it.
By the way, I mean, in 2009, 2010, you could pick up a lot of duplexes for in that $10,000 to $20,000 range. There was a ton of them.
Correct. That's what
I wish I bought a lot more.
A friend at work, a colleague, said, well, you can buy a house on a credit card now. And that's what really triggered me to start looking in 2008. So I bought the property for $10,000, and then I had estimated $65,000 for the rehab. And then I got wind of a program. There's Get the Lead Out program with the City of Grand Rapids, and also rental rehab. So I engaged both those programs, worked with the city, worked with a contractor who was lead-based paint qualified for abatement. And we went through, and they did a full analysis, full quote, and the city quote came back in at $92,000, which kind of knocked me back a little bit. And that's all money that I have to pay up front. So we went ahead with the program. It took a lot more paperwork and a little longer, working through all of the requirements. But at the end of the day, I'd had $92,000 of rehab plus $10,000 into the actual purchase, so 102. I got $38,000 of that back. So $8,000 was for the Get the Lead Out, $4,000 per unit, and rental rehab was they will pay 50% of your rehab costs up to $14,999. So I don't know whether there's still funds available in that program. I believe Get the Lead Out is still going on. Rental rehab, I would certainly need to check, but it was a very good program. So I have 2 new high efficiency water heaters, furnaces, all new kitchen, all new plumbing, new PEX plumbing, new waste plumbing, new electrical, new windows, new roof. Everything is pretty much new. So my capex on that property is minimal now. I now rent it at $900 per side.
Let's talk for a moment about Point Central, the leading provider of enterprise-scale smart home automation for short and long-term rental property managers, and how their exciting technology can help you control property access to vendors and potential tenants. No more time wasted waiting for late appointments or no-shows. Oversee energy usage and analyze data in order to reduce utility and maintenance expenses. Eliminate the cost of keys or rekeying locks. Command higher rents and increase increase tenant retention and provide tools for tenants and managers to monitor the property to improve safety and security. And it's all done through cloud technology, utilizing encrypted data and private cellular service. And best of all, the return on investment of installing Point Central's technology is upwards of 25% a year. The future of property management is here, and you can find out more by visiting pointcentral.com. Depending on when you're listening to this and where those programs are in their budgetary cycle, I do believe that the Get the Let Out program is definitely still happening right now. The rental rehab program may still be, but Google it. If you're in the Grand Rapids area, Google Grand Rapids rental rehab program or Grand Rapids Get the Let Out program, and there is good money available. To do a lot of the improvements on your property.
Yes, I think that's where Paul and I like to help our clients as well as the individual homeowners to be aware of those types of programs. So there's, on the homeowner side, there's certain programs available, certain grants as well. But on the investor side, we can, it's, I think by nature, we both try to share best practices, and we try to help our clients and others, non-clients as well, with best practices in the area, and just to monitor and track that.
And on that property, another forced appreciation, there were 3 rooms there, but the one room was very small. So we looked at the square foot of each of the rooms. So we kept the master bedroom at the front, and then the other room we actually shrunk by 20 square feet and gained 20 square feet to the other room. So that room then became a bedroom as well. So I turned it from a 2-bed into a 3-bed, and it's a side-by-side duplex. So that, I think the rent increase per month allowable, because there's some rent caps with the program. But the allowable rent, I think, went up $200 a month by just moving that one wall. So instead of having a 90 square foot bedroom and a 50 square foot room, we now have 2 70 square foot bedrooms. And I think the requirement for a bedroom is 70 square feet, 2 outlets, 2 forms of egress, and you've got to heat the center of the room to 70 degrees Fahrenheit.
And were you able to do that on both sides?
Correct.
So you were able to add 2 bedrooms to your duplex?
Correct.
One on each side? Yeah,
the duplex was purpose-built duplex, so it's a mirror image side to side. So they're both identical, and we just moved those walls.
That's a great example of forcing appreciation on a property, is just finding that extra bedroom. I mean, when you can do that, that's gold. It is important, though, to point out with the Get the Let Out program and the rental rehab program that it's not just free money. They do expect you to rent rent it out as a kind of really affordable housing. So you are capped as far as the rent you can charge and the financial strength of the residents that you can choose from.
I have a question. Is there a link to that, how long you have to rent it out at the cap? Like after...
Correct.
If you go online, you can see their requirements.
There is a lien on my property now for the program that I'm on. So it's a 5-year lien, and the Get the Let Out, I think, was a 3-year lien.
3 years for Get the Let Out.
I did that on another property. But I guess you have to choose which area you're going to rent in, and this area, the location is on Kalamazoo Avenue for this particular duplex, and there is a rental cap that gets adjusted every year by the city. So you got to look at whether that cap is going to kind of hurt you or hold you back or not. So if it was in East Town, where the rents are very high, or in East Grand Rapids, where the rents are high, your cap would be holding you back.
Yeah, you'd actually come out ahead to spend that $20,000-$30,000 out of your own pocket, and charge a higher rent. And I remember looking at some properties and running the numbers both ways and realizing, well, clearly if my rent's not capped, I'll make a lot more money, and it will offset any additional amount I have to pay toward rehabbing the property.
Right. And when I looked at the rents in this area, they were actually around or below the cap anyway. So I wasn't going to be losing anything by going through the program. And now I have 2 energy efficient units. We had to put insulation into the attic, blown insulation into the walls, high efficiency furnace and water heater, as I said. So yeah, I've only had 1 service call on those 2 units for a repair, and that was because the RF switches that they were using for the fan and the lights, when the when the one tenant on the right-hand side turned her light on, the one on the left-hand side turned off. So we hardwired those, and that was problem fixed.
Well, I want to get back to this idea of leaving. Both of you left a corporate job, and I want to get back to leaving a full-time corporate job, which is something all three of us have done. Although I didn't technically have a corporate job, but I had a full-time job. And getting into real estate full-time and the challenges that each of you faced in doing so. And Jacques, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I think I was in corporate software sales for ERP, enterprise resource planning, so high-end applications working with large organizations. Very competitive, long sales cycles, and just forecasting, et cetera, within that world. You're on the road a lot. It's very tumultuous. You have a lot of variables that can go wrong. And so, the goal for my wife and I, especially by moving here to Grand Rapids, is to engineer the life that we want to live. And so I was on the road anywhere from 2 to 4 days a week. And I had one foot in the investing side and one foot in the corporate America side. And it was, I found that I could structure a life on the investing side that would allow me to be home. We have a newborn. I can spend more time with my wife and the newborn, and also allows us more flexibility, especially if Paul and I working kind of side by side, we can help each other out. He's called me a few times to go look at properties. I'll go do it for, or he'll do it for me as well to look at properties for our investors. Let's say I'm out of town, but there's a hot property, got to go out to go look at it and help the investor analyze the property or ourselves. Anyway, by putting systems in place to do that, we transition away from that corporate America demand and into essentially working for ourselves, where we are able to have a more flexible schedule. But now you have to be committed and you have to set goals there, and that's what each of us do. But it's been an interesting ride, had definitely challenges along the way of lessons that we've learned of projects going wrong, of overruns, municipality zoning, and issues that have surfaced.
Can you elaborate on some of those mistakes or challenges?
Yeah,
or experiences?
Theft by, on my end, I've had theft by the contractor, essentially stealing equipment that I had purchased. Also delay or misrepresenting what they had accomplished. So the challenge with me, I mentioned earlier, I had a lot of leads or opportunities outside of the Grand Rapids area. So it was rather difficult for me to sometimes get to those properties. And so in one situation up in town northeast of here, Muskegon, northwest of here, just a contractor that just was working on a project. He also he didn't pull the right permits with the municipality, so they came back to me, and I had to go and get plumbing permit and a plumber to come in to replace a sink in the kitchen for $2,000.
Oh.
So, something I could do, putting the kitchen sink back in the exact same spot, ended up costing me $2,000 more because of
the correct permits had not been pulled.
Correct permits, and also the municipality codes too. They require that. So,
wow, yeah. So that can get quite expensive.
Yeah.
I mean, just if that happens a couple of times, that's a big chunk of money that goes out the window.
Yeah, and those are some of those $30,000 properties that you hear investors talk about, whether or not they're worth it to invest in those. They may have good cash flow on the rent roll, but then in the reality, you have the CapEx expenditures or overruns, and the margins are pretty tight. That if things do go wrong, the percentage of impact is obviously higher, right? Yeah. Versus a larger property where you can kind of hide that $2,000.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, I've talked to a lot of people on this show who are investing in Muskegon and buying the $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 single families, and probably putting 20, 30 into them. So hopefully they're getting rid of a lot of those future headaches by just going in and rehabbing properly. But what you just said, sort of,
just know your numbers.
That's my experience is what you just said, which is you buy these inexpensive single families, and just the cost of maintaining them and CapEx and these little mistakes add up to a point where it's just, for me, not worth the headache.
Yeah, I think you just have to know your numbers. You have to know the municipality. And both Paul and I are, and I know you are, Brian, are conservative about how we run our numbers so that we'll budget for those types of situations.
Yeah.
This one did overrun, the one I'm thinking about overran by about, in the end, $6-7 grand. And that took away all my profit on that one was going to be a flip. So it took away, I was doing it as a turnkey. So it's now under contract, but I've lost my turnkey profit.
Right.
Yeah.
So you break even.
Yeah. But you know what? It's part of the game. You win them, you lose them. I've had others that have been really successful. And so.
Yeah. The cost of doing business, but it's hard to budget for theft and stupidity.
It grinds on you. It just grinds on you. And it just
Should be a line item for that, theft and stupidity. Yeah.
And, in my situation, my radar was going off with this guy. I knew it. I just knew it. But that's an example of where I was still in the corporate world and, traveling a lot. And I was like, okay, I can just power through this. He'll get it done. And I should have put forth more of an effort to go and backfill that individual to cut my losses sooner. But again, demands on time with family in corporate America. But now I'm in a situation where I'm all in, right? So it's I know when to make those changes. So.
Yeah. Paul, what about you? I mean, the challenges that you face going from corporate America to full-time real estate investing.
Okay, I guess for me, I had a good income coming in from my full-time day job, and I had health benefits, and I had a good income coming in from my rental portfolio. And the goal with the rental portfolio was always to keep on investing. So the money that came into the business was to go back into the business. The money that came in from my day job was to put bread on the, food on the table, take us on vacation, buy clothes, cars, etc. So it was very much divided. My concern was that going from basically leaving my day job, then I wouldn't have that other source of income to support the family, basically. So then we would have to tap into the rental income to support the family. And in doing that, I would then shut off any ability to grow my business. And the other thought I had at that point in time is, as soon as you give up your day job, the ability to finance anything becomes a lot harder if you don't have if you can't show a good income coming in.
Yeah, if you can't show, especially if you can't show W-2 income.
W-2, exactly. So before I left my day job, I wanted to consolidate my debt, and I had some debt with a line of credit, which is on my personal house, which is how I started off investing. I had some with some private investors at 6% and 8%, which are reasonable rates, but I wanted to get those down. And had a mortgage there as well on one of the properties. So basically what I did a commercial refi on 10 properties and wrapped up 10 properties, commercial refi, and that paid off any of the debt that I had. And it also gave me a line of credit because I had sufficient collateral in the properties. So that set me in good stead. So I did that before I quit my day job, which allowed me to have like $175,000 line of credit. So I was still able to be in the game and play and buy houses after quitting the day job. So my concern after leaving the day job was then replacing that income with a realtor income so that I still had those two sources of income and I could still continue to build the business. What
you just said is very important, because I did the same thing. When I knew I was going to transition from my W-2 income to being a full-time investor, I too, on my home loan, refinanced that, got into a lower interest rate, better terms and everything. And I knew I needed to do that before I made that transition, because it would be almost impossible without having W-2 income, without having those paycheck stubs at the time. I don't know what residential financing is like right now, but at the time they were very insistent on having W-2 income, paycheck stubs, and if you didn't have them, you'd have to have at least 2 years of showing income from something else. And then the other thing that both of you mentioned was healthcare. If you have a good job, chances are you're getting health care paid for.
Correct.
Well, once you leave that job and you start paying for your own health care, that can be, for a family of four, which is what I have, that can be anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000 a year, depending on
Coverage,
deductibles. I mean, when you add in deductibles and everything, you're going to need $15,000 to $20,000. So that's also something you really need to take into consideration before you make that leap.
Yeah, we've experienced that more so this year. I got two daughters, both in gymnastics, and one's moved to cheer now and rolled her ankle. So that was a $2,000 MRI, and well, that was from a prior injury, in fact. But there's a lot of things you have to take into account and consider for the future, and have a stash of money on the side for those unpredictable, unforeseen circumstances.
What lessons have you taken or experiences from the corporate world that you are now applying to investing?
I think for me, data-driven, and if I used to go to my old CEO without data, I'd be shown the door. It's a very professional world. I used to work with the big three motor companies, and if you don't go there knowing your data, you would be, or you wouldn't be respected. So you got to know what you're talking about and be able to support that.
And what, as far as data, what kind of data do you traffic in right now?
Well, again, there's data, so your return on investment and looking at or your essential income and then your expenses and knowing those correctly. One of the things that people often overlook is the property taxes, and if the property has been owned by someone for many years, the taxable value is a lot lower than the SEV, and then with the property prices right now where they've gone up a lot, your property taxes are likely to double, and especially if you're using it as a rental with 0% principal residence exemption, your property taxes are going to go up a lot. If those numbers aren't in there up front, you can have a big disparity at the end when you come to looking at your net operating income or your monthly per door profit. It's suddenly diminished.
Yeah, I've said it many times on this podcast, but I'll say it again. It's the number one mistake that new investors make is assuming that the property taxes aren't going to change when they buy the property. And if they don't know how they're going to change, they could completely crush any profit that they were going to have. They could end up cash flow negative by quite a bit if they don't understand how those property taxes are assessed.
Yeah, we try to factor that in. I also, contractors, I often work with investors that perhaps, not to be sexist, but the wife will think that, or the husband too, that the project will be X, which in reality it's really Y. And from my background, I'm able to, in a past life, I actually worked for a design build firm. So it helps me, and my family's background in construction, it helps me to apply more realistic numbers to that rehab, because there's that adage, you always make money on the buy side, and if you buy it right and you rehab it right and you force that appreciation, that's where your money is, right? It's and so to yours and Paul's point of knowing those numbers on the construction side, knowing those numbers on the taxation, insurance, and factoring on all the right variables to know that your net operating income is truly in the black. That's where, and you have to set that goal of, I want $150, $300 per door, and does it meet your target range? And so quickly analyzing whether or not a property, you can run your quick numbers and analyze, does it make sense to even go look at, or where should we offer?
Right. So that's kind of the corporate. You're from your corporate background. That's sort of what you're applying to real estate investing.
And systems and technology is the other one I would use.
What types of systems and technology?
There's some online analyzing tools that we use. I also use Dropbox quite a bit, Dotloop to help streamline, or DocuSign to streamline the signature process. Various tools like Rentometer and others to be able to market analysis. I'm looking into some new rental property management portfolio rental applications to be able to track that. or to leverage those, but that would be on my own side. I want to make it so I can run my business off my phone or my tablet or laptop, being where I am, and be able to run to put individuals onto certain tasks and do things remotely as much as possible.
Yeah.
There is a value in walking a property to make sure that what you're seeing is what was represented in those photos. But if you have systems and personnel in place in the region, that can help with that.
I work with a lot of investors who are from other states. So I am their eyes and ears on the ground here in Grand Rapids. So I'll look through a house, maybe I'll FaceTime with them and walk through the house doing FaceTime. Otherwise, I'll take a lot of detailed pictures of the good, the bad, and the ugly, and upload those to Google Photos and have them sent through to them so they can see the property for what it's worth.
Great. What about stories? I know you guys came here with a couple horror stories, and you don't mind sharing them?
I guess I've got one house that covers all of mine. My beloved Bridge Street property, I bought this duplex because it was next door but one to a property that my good friend of mine had, or still has. And we went through the Get a Let Out program with that, so we had it re-sided, new windows. But Bridge Street at that point in time, it's close to Lane, was still pretty rough. And I put some tenants in there, and we had all manner of issues. I've had the tenant move out, and then I walked through, and I looked down at my legs, and my legs are covered in fleas. So that was one of the less desirable
that was a good
jobs
start.
as a landlord. But then I put someone else in there, still a little naive in the early days, and she was staying in a kind of motel. Should have got a red flag from that, but she moved in. Apparently, never turned on utilities, which is again something I've changed now, that they have to give me utility confirmation that utilities have been changed, transferred into their name before they get the key. And so she never turned on gas or electric. And then I got word from the tenants downstairs that she was actually a prostitute, and I guess taking in clients on a daily basis upstairs.
Oh,
so
wow.
She moved out after a little while, and then I got a letter in the mail that my property had been raided, unbeknown to me, and it happened to be the same property. And so I got the letter of how the door had been breached from the front and the rear, and that was an education for me as well. And we kind of I discussed with my colleagues and friends with other rentals, and we kind of chuckle about it afterwards. But it's an education there. They were doing corn dogs, and I barely knew what a corn dog was, being from England, coming to America.
What?
Are you talking the food corn dog? Or?
No, not the food corn dog. And what is corn dog is marijuana rolled with crack cocaine, apparently.
Huh.
Really?
Really. So one would you would think
corn
one
dog.
would counter out the other. But
So they were making those in which unit, upstairs or downstairs?
upstairs unit. So then I took on the undesirable task of going across and knocking on the door and telling this substantially larger guy than me that he was on a 24-hour notice, 24-hour eviction. So that my heart was racing. It's kind of in my mouth that day when I went there, but his eyes were all glazed over. So I think he was pretty well gone at that point. Anyway,
Did he actually move out in 24 hours?
I don't recall now, but they did move out. And then what else happened there?
Did you have to give them cash for keys, or did you?
They no, I just gave them drugs.
Let's edit that out.
Renting corn dogs.
Yeah. So then I got a call from one of my contractors. He used to do snow plow and lawn service for me around about 7 o'clock in the morning, saying, "Hey, Paul, is that your house on Bridge Street on fire?" And I'm like, I sincerely hope not. But then I looked and I see these pictures of like flames coming like 15, 20 feet out of the roof of this house. And I didn't recognize the house because it was dark still. But then it panned back and I saw the neighbor's house, and I was like, oh, yep, that's my house. So that was another scary moment where you're kind of frantically looking around for the insurance documents, and you know they're there, but you want to see them, you want to hold them. And they were in the wrong folder because it was 2 policies were under the same name. So it wasn't in the Bridge Street folder, it was in the Benjamin folder. So again, heart racing and making sure everyone was okay. Everyone had got out, and that was a total loss. So good to know. I guess you get to know a little bit more about insurance policies at that point in time, whether you're covered for replacement or for market value.
Had the fire started in your property?
It had started in the property. We had different fire investigators through there. They didn't know where it started. But then I had a tenant coming back and saying, yes, it was my problem. That she'd warned me or warned my contractor multiple times about issues, but there were no issues. That
So
she
the
had
tenant
alerted
tried to
me.
blame it on you.
Right, and this was like 4 weeks afterwards. So I think a tenant was looking for a payday.
Yeah.
So always heart-stopping moments.
Those games that the tenants sometimes play, you want to help them out, but then they'll play games like that. You want to be a fair landlord, but I find tenants will play games. You just have to.
Yeah.
Maybe that comes back to Paul and I have talked about self-management versus using a property management company, and so.
Yeah, the one thing I've learned is not to trust anyone and not to trust the tenants and what they tell you, because I've heard every excuse in the book that I was in hospital, my mom had the checkbook, and.
But on the other side, I've had wonderful tenants that pay on time.
Yes.
I use various
Likewise.
online payment methods and stuff. So the payment comes in clockwise, respect the property, take care of it. I mean, you have a good way of screening the tenants with the car method.
I always, pre-screen the people, go in there with an email, and then I'll go and take a look at the people, how they present themselves, look in their car, see if they've got McDonald's wrappers and cups on the back seat, how they look after their own property. And if they don't look after their own property very well, they're surely not going to look after my property very well either. So look at how they interact with their children as well, whether they're screaming at the kids or whether they're well-disciplined children. And so it's one of the reasons why I guess I still manage my own properties, is because I like to know who's going to be going into my house and doing that own personal screening. But for sure, it takes a lot of my time going through and listening to the sub stories or from different tenants. And I guess the big turn off for me is like, I'm desperate. I'll pay you rent today and 2 months rent today and security deposit. I need to move in ASAP. That's a major red flag for me, and I just need someone to give me a chance. And I've fallen for that one in the past, and it's bitten me. So
that's a red flag.
It's a red flag,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah, and I had it the other day, and if they're lying to me, I ask these questions. I ask the question, the same questions all the time. Any evictions, any convictions, felonies, misdemeanors, any pets, any smokers. And the lady answered all the questions, and then asked whether. And she said she was homeless as well. I said, "Why are you homeless?" She said, "Well, there was I was in jail for robbery or something." And then there was something else. I said, well, what I look for is honesty. And the first thing that she did was lie to me because she had not answered that question. And she wished me good luck in finding a tenant. Which I thought was ironic.
Yeah. What about you, Jacques? Where do you come down on the should you manage yourself? Or
Yeah, so I just have a few properties now, but I think later on, especially, and don't get me wrong, I believe in hard work, but I want to ensure that, again, we're putting systems in place. And so I will, when I run my numbers, I always factor in that property management account or amount. Now I can do it by myself. I do try to use resources out there that help me on the screening side or on the questionnaire side to be able to find those good tenants. But there are some that will slip through the cracks. Sometimes you get a little bit like, especially when I had my corporate job, I was just kind of like less due diligence in screening those individuals. And you sound like a good person on the phone. You meet with them in person. They seem to present themselves well. To Paul's point, they treat their children well, et cetera. But, later on, games are played, and you just have to be aware of that and how to play. Or it's good to know the resources that are around you to help hedge against that, but then also steps that you can take once the games start to be played. So, but back to your question, I'm getting closer to wanting to use a property management company just to take a little bit of, because that keeps me up at night. I want to be a good landlord. I want to have a good product. I want to have pride in what we build or rehab and what we own and the equity. Yeah, I want the value to continue. But at some point it keeps me up, and I got to sleep through the night to be able to get up and do the job the next day. So, there's tasks that have to be done, and I want to make sure that I can take that stress out of my life, and there's a value, intrinsic value to moving over to a property management company. I just haven't gotten there.
Yeah, ultimately, I think that's where I have to go to work on the business, not in the business. The old cliche, but it's true. I spent a lot of my time screening tenants, meeting tenants, and that time could be spent putting other deals together, doing marketing to find other deals, working with other people to make money elsewhere. So it's something I just need to be pushed off the cliff on. I'm on the edge,
maybe
teetering.
That next tenant will do it to you.
The next one
annoys you.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you've had the prostitutes, the corn dogs,
I've
never
next
corn dogs. Yeah,
that's learned something new there.
Yep.
So as we wrap it up here, Jacques, is there anything else that I haven't asked you that I should, or any advice that you might have for our listeners?
Yeah, I think Grand Rapids is. My wife and I are loving this area, and we find that it's one of the most livable areas in the country right now. A year or so ago, Grand Rapids had the lowest vacancy out of any city in the country.
Yeah, I think we're still around 2%.
I think we're in the
we're
top.
Low.
Yeah,
we're very low.
However you look at that. So it's a tight market. And so the advice is, because I have out-of-state investors as well that I work with, and even local investors, is I hope that the individuals that I work with, that we bring a value of maybe some coaching, some mentoring, local knowledge of the various neighborhoods here in the Grand Rapids area, Greater Grand Rapids, Wyoming, Byron Center, Ada, et cetera, to be able to analyze the properties, whether it's an investor or an individual homeowner that's either looking to buy or sell their house, and then being able to use tools in our network to make a informed decision. So take some of the emotion out of it and be able to make a more dollars and cents, pros and cons evaluation of properties in the area.
And if someone wanted to get a hold of you, what would be the best way to do that?
Yeah, so you could reach me at Jacques Cyr. So
You're gonna have to spell that.
I'm going to spell that one. JACQUES, and then CYR at BHHSMI.com. Or I have an East Coast mobile number, but it's 617-775-9352. And happy to speak with anyone that's looking to invest in the Grand Rapids area and do what I can to help.
Paul, what about you? Any last words for us?
I guess for investment, just go back to your numbers. Always go back to your numbers. And I always speak with the investors, and I will give them a guide price on a property. But always recommend to go back to your numbers and make sure the numbers work for you. Mm-hmm. And it could be a 1% rule that they're good with, or it could be a 1.5% rule that is good for any different people. So go back, and if the numbers don't work, don't force it. So happy to help out. Happy to share my few years of wisdom here since like 2008, 2009, and many horror stories, but many good stories. And I guess the key is to learn from those horror stories. Mm-hmm. And they've not been too bad overall. I enjoy what I do now, and that's why I gave up the corporate job, because I love the real estate, and that's where my passion is. And I really enjoy what I'm doing and helping others succeed in their strive for financial freedom, or just to get on the ladder with rental properties.
Great. And how would someone be able to get a hold of you?
My contact details are on my website, which is www.paulleason.com. So PAULLEASON.
And I also, just to step back, I also have Rubicon Invest MI. So RubiconInvestMI.com. my public website. And then through Berkshire Hathaway, I have the Jacques Cyr at Berkshire Hathaway. So.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for sharing that experience of going from the corporate world to full-on real estate investing, whether being an agent, helping other home buyers and investors, or investing yourselves, which you're both doing. And thanks for sharing your stories. And I learned a lot today. I learned what BRRRR is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All right.
What is it? Buy,
rehab, rent, refinance, repeat.
Excellent. And I learned what a corn dog is. So,
thank you for having us.
Careful when you order one.
I thought it was a tasty treat, but apparently it's something that will get the cops to come bust my door down. So.
I guess it's your perspective whether or not it's a tasty treat,
So thanks, Paul, for being here, and Jacques, thanks for coming.
Yeah, thank you, Brian.
Pleasure talking with you.
Thanks.
This episode was sponsored by Green Property Management, managing everything from single-family homes to apartment complexes in the West Michigan area. Find out more at greenpropertymgt.com.